is PIPcast.
Hello, my name's Craig Griffiths.
And I'm Justin Blackett.
And welcome to the third episode of PIPcast, a podcast for ODPs and the theatre world.
Can you believe it? We've made the third episode.
I know. Well, it looks like we're being punished for it by a blistering heat wave.
It's so warm. So we're kind of recording it's kind of at the end of June for this PIPcast as our intro, and it's certainly a bit warm. It's about 30 plus today.
Yeah. Whew. PIPcast Towers is not got any air conditioning, and we are suffering for it. So
my thoughts are out to all you guys out there working in theatres where your aircon, as per usual, fails around this time of year. Absolutely. And you are sweltering.
Yeah, the one time you want it to be freezing cold, that's when it goes down.
Impossible.
Absolutely. So, what's happened over the last month, Justin?
Well, it's been an incredibly busy month. I mean, I feel like I'm repeating what we did in episode 2, but I think you guys have reached out to us more so than ever before, and thank you so much for doing that. I think the communication between us all has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. We have tried to get a little more active on Twitter, Facebook, and we've had some fantastic responses. We've had some really great engagement. People like Amy Ellis, Sally Gilbert, who was on the last show, has been in touch. Angela McPhee, who will be featuring on this show. And also Rachel Clark has been very active, and Tony Jeremy has asked us to shout out the East Anglian
Anglian group that's out there. But that's fantastic. It was good. And I think, like we mentioned in episode 1 and reinforced in episode 2, that actually Craig and I have so much stuff that we want to talk to you about, and so many people are contacting us now that we are banking up loads of interviews,
absolutely,
loads of experiences that we've got so much episodes in the future that will be so informative to you guys, and so stay tuned because there's so much coming.
Yeah, we're hoping to do a more regular episode, but we're just waiting to get enough content to do that. It's not that we can't find the content, it's that we need to find time to actually record it in between our actual normal lives.
We're both trying to hold down a full-time job and the commitments of family as well. But we're here, we're working hard, and there's not a week that goes by that we're doing something to record some audio or explore future projects.
Yeah, for instance, we've had a bit of fun on Twitter, and following on about our mental health chat, we had a look at what makes people happy, and toasters was the subject that seemed to come up.
It came back from a tweet from one of our listeners that talked about how in some places people are having toasters removed because of this mythical fire risk. And managers and health and safety people have gone down that route. And so we thought, you know what, let's reach out to our listeners within the PIPcast world to determine, do you have a toaster? And if you do, does it improve your morale?
Yeah, fantastic project for those students doing a little QI project if they want to see if toaster morale improves or chocolates in the coffee room. With regards to mental health, we have a slightly somber note. Obviously, since we recorded, we've had attacks in Manchester and London, and we just like to say to our colleagues who worked, no doubt, continuously throughout the night of those attacks, the days following, and then those colleagues separately who patients might have been moved out to, who then continue to work on those patients, giving fantastic care. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Yeah, I know the national press certainly focuses on the guys that are in ground zero, and there are some amazing heroes out there that put themselves in danger, and of course many lives were lost unnecessarily. But we know, as ODPs out there, that behind the scenes there would have been an operating theatre team that would have been activated and standby. That I think one of the worst on-calls I can imagine if that played out on my shift. But ultimately this team was activated and to a degree a hospital based on major incident. And so the whole network of theatres up and down the country would have come live through the regional trauma networks, and I certainly know in Bristol we had some patients within the respective worlds that supported that. So it was an international incident because everyone worked together, and like Craig said, my thoughts out to all of you ODPs and other theatre staff that were supporting those patients in incredibly difficult times. And thoughts out to the family of Kirsty Bowden, who was a nurse, 28-year-old, who works in theatres and recovery at Guy's Hospital, who was killed in the London Bridge terror attack. I mean, it's very rare that it touches us as a community, and clearly Kirsty paid the highest price there, and so thoughts out to her family and to everyone who's been affected by that, because it must be awful to be in that team, to experience such loss, even more so in current times. And so our thoughts once again go out to her family and her team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Particularly as well, thank you to everyone who offered their work. There were some people on different groups that were offering to go in and work in hospitals they may have never worked in before, just to give a helping hand. I mean, at the end of it, we are one profession, and we all know the troubles and trials and tribulations of our jobs, and actually to even know that someone is there ready to support you is fantastic, and it's something we definitely want to bring forward in future talks on mental health.
Really important, I think, and because these situations really do open up thoughts and processes that if you need to talk to people, then we are here as PIPcast listeners, but you're reaching out to your managers to help you through that process too.
Absolutely. If you'd like to get in touch with us or give us some feedback or even have an interview with us, you can contact us in a variety of ways. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at ODPPipcast. You can get in touch with us on Skype. You can leave a telephone message, or you can email us, and the email for that is odppipcast@gmail.com, or you can search for us on Facebook, and if you just search for Pipcast, then we should come up. We should be the first with our pirate flag ready to go.
Absolutely.
So for the rest of the show, we're going to be a bit more positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have got an interview with Angela McPhee. You may know her from Twitter fame. She ran the @NHS account for ODPs in December, which was fantastic.
Yeah, she's been one of those modern-day champions of the ODP profession, so we had to have her on our show. She's
also got a video on the life of an ODP, which she'll talk about. Please go and watch it. We'll include a link into our description of this episode. Please click on the link, go and view it. It's fantastic. Share it to all your friends, anyone who's thinking about becoming an ODP, any schools you want to send it to, please send it to them. It's a really fantastic video, kind of demonstrating what we do in our sort of main role as a theatre ODP. We've also got an interview with Paul from the Preoperative Logbook app. I don't know if anyone else has used it, but I've certainly been using it, and when we started doing this podcast and we were thinking about getting apps on board, he was one of the first people I wanted to talk to, so we're great to have him on this show.
Yeah, it's our continuous effort to reach out to people to promote some of the stuff that will just make our life even better as an ODP.
And lastly, we're going to talk about the conference coming up, the inaugural, the seminal conference for ODPs that's going on at Sheffield Hallam University. Thank you very much, Sheffield Hallam, for being so forward-thinking and having this, giving us this opportunity. It is on the 5th of July. If you don't have a ticket, go and get one. Yeah,
absolutely. It's all going on. Looking at the programme, it looks amazing. And Sheffield University, in partnership with PIPcast, we're working together. We will feature.
We will be there.
And so, which is fantastic. Craig is going to be our roving reporter for that day. And we'll talk about a bit more of that later.
Please don't run. I will chase you. I probably won't, because they'll kick me out. So now on the show we've got Angela McPhee, who you may know as our representative on @NHS, the NHS Twitter. Hello Angela, how are you?
Hi Craig, hi Justin, yeah, I'm doing great, thank you.
So Angela, we brought you on here because you do quite a lot to promote ODPs. You were, as we said, the @NHS representative in December, and you've got a video that shows a day in the life of the ODP, which if anyone hasn't seen, we'll put it in the description on the podcast, and you can click on that and watch it to your heart's content. How did you get into the profession?
I got into the profession. I've actually worked in the NHS for 15 years altogether, and I was a phlebotomist for about 4 years. So I'd worked in the trust, and I'd worked on all the wards and quite a lot of the outpatients departments and things as a phlebotomist for 4 years. But it got to the point where my family was starting to, my youngest one was going to school, and I was just looking to do a little bit more and do some more training and get back into education. So I decided to start looking at the environment I was already working in, which was the hospital environment, and what I could do to sort of better myself and go back to school and university. It's funny, but I always knew I didn't want to be a nurse. I think from my time working on the wards as a phlebotomist, I seen the pressures and the pace and the role of the nurse. And I just already had decided in my head that wasn't what I wanted to do.
I think lots of our listeners will be able to relate to that statement. That you kind of have a calling to a specific area, and some people know that nursing is just not for them.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, a lot of my friends are nursing friends and absolutely amazing at their jobs, and the colleagues I work with are, phenomenal nurses. I just knew that wasn't for me, so I started looking into the allied health professions.
Okay.
And although not formally recognised as an allied health profession at the time, the role of the operating department practitioner came up because obviously they were working in my trust, and I was intrigued more than anything because I hadn't heard of an ODP. I hadn't heard of who they were or what they did. So I actually went.
It's quite a common theme, isn't it? No one seems to have heard of ODPs, and you get some.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Some people say it with a sense of pride when they do know what an ODP is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because I didn't know what an ODP was, but yet several times I've been looked after by an ODP, and I didn't know it. I wasn't aware of the fact that, when I'd had my experience in theatre and things like that, and, I'd had 2 children by cesarean, I hadn't realised that the people that were actually looking after me were ODPs. I think I just presumed they were nurses and doctors, and I didn't actually recognise that role.
It's something I don't think we have to necessarily contend with. I think people are we're thick-skinned enough, and we know that we give the best to our patients, and patients appreciate us. But like you said, they just don't realise that we are not nurses. So did that lead you to doing the day in the life of the ODP to try and promote the profession? That kind of unawareness that you had when you were a patient?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely part of it. I think, obviously, having worked in the profession now for 6 years, it was something I was always keen to do as a student because, before I'd gone into it, I didn't realise what the ODP role was, hadn't then, trained in it and worked in it, realised, just how specialist we are and how really we need to, promote the fact that we're specialist practitioners and celebrate the fact that we're specialist practitioners. And just being really proud in the area that you work in. So it was always something I'd wanted to do, is to give something back and just help promote the role. It's always something I'd hoped to do.
And like Craig said, he'll advertise the link to your video, and it's an amazing video and highly commendable for doing such a thing. So how did you go about doing that? I mean, I guess you had to have lots of support from kind of audio-visual people. I mean, talk me through that process.
Well, actually, it was the process for the at NHS. So we wanted to do a short video and just show some of the areas, some of the more well-known areas that ODPs work in. So in the theatre environment, whether it be, an anaesthetics and the scrub role and the recovery role. But we actually had one of our nursing team who used to work in theatres, who had some really good, video equipment, who was quite keen on helping, develop the role, who offered to do that for us. And we're really lucky that we had a very forward-thinking matron who was an ex-ITU nurse, who was just really keen to help us promote our role.
Well, that's fantastic to have such a multitude of specialities that really are focused on trying to promote the role of the ODP. So that's great news.
Yeah, absolutely excellent. I mean, couldn't do it without them.
No.
A lot of our team are, we celebrate each other because we know how well we work together, and we know how much our different roles bring, different skills and a different mix, and how much it benefits the patient at the end of the day.
Absolutely. It's that kind of a professional approach to it all.
Absolutely.
So here you are moving into this. Could kind of go back a little bit. You moved from being a phlebotomist to becoming an ODP. Did you do the diploma or the degree course, or what level did you kind of walk into and work into?
Yes. Yeah, so at the time, I didn't have the background to go straight into university, so I had to do the HEFC model, which was the Higher Education Foundation courses, so on a night time at school.
Okay.
And I was very lucky that the trust that I was working for, which is Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Gateshead, they actually worked my shifts around allowing me to go to as a phlebotomist to sort of go back to college to get those those qualifications. And then I was really lucky enough to be seconded at the time. So I was seconded into the role of the student operating department practitioner by my trust.
Okay.
Fantastic. It sounds like you've got one hell of a supportive trust and department, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't fault them one way or another. They just supported me from day one, and they wanted me to progress as much as I wanted to progress. So I was really, really fortunate, and I do feel a sense of loyalty towards them for what they've given me. So it's just really nice to be able to, give something back to them as well.
Absolutely. I think it's Richard Branson that says if you teach and train your staff so that they are able to leave, they won't want to. Essentially, if you kind of build them up, then actually they will repay that in kind with that kind of loyalty. And obviously, your trust is an example of that with you and your development.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it's so good because, they're continuing with my CPD. And like I said, I was doing my mentorship training. So it's so good that I can now pass that on to other people. So not only have I benefited from it myself, I'm going to benefit other people who are going to come and work in my profession and in my trust. So it's just amazing that people give that back.
Amazing. Very compelling story. It's really good to hear. Such a enthusiastic ODP that's out there. It's really good.
How did you get on to do the at NHS? Did they approach you? Did you have to approach them? How did it work?
Well, it was actually a newsletter that come, one of my local newsletters from my trust. There was just a very small snippet of information on the bottom, and it said, would anybody be interested in at NHS are doing a 13-week pilot scheme, and they're looking for members of staff and patients as well to give their story over a week. So it'll be a week in the life of, we've had paramedic consultants, patients who are going through cancer treatment. So it was quite a mix, but it was initially a 13-week pilot that ran, and I was chosen. I sort of submitted an application form on why I would like to do it, and the reasons why I would like to do it were to promote the role and give information, to the public, and I was chosen to do that.
You must have been very proud to be chosen as well.
Oh, I was absolutely thrilled, but then I was very frightened at the same time because I thought, oh my God, I actually have to do this now,
Yeah. You can't just put up cat pictures.
Oh no, absolutely not. And I mean, you sort of the background that went into it, not just from myself, but from my colleagues, from people at the university, and my matron, my trust, everybody that was involved, my sort of comms team, just everybody that was involved behind the scenes. I was the one that was sort of doing all the tweeting and doing all the sending out, but the background information that went into that was a massive, huge team effort.
Absolutely. It must be quite difficult because you've got things to take into account, patient confidentiality. There's a lot about healthcare and social media that's been about recently, particularly with pre-hospital care, that it must have been quite a minefield in some respects. So obviously having the support of your management and your comms team was probably quite important.
Well, it absolutely was because, as you know, being in a theatre is actually, we're quite a closed profession. We're sort of behind closed doors. We're in the sterile environment. We're maintaining patient confidentiality and dignity. So all of that had to be addressed before we went ahead and done it. We had to have sort of pre-consent and pre-discussion with the patients that we were following through. We had to make sure that we were, maintaining dignity and professionalism all the way through before we even got to send the tweet out. And that had to be very, very well thought through because, as you know, Twitter is, anybody in the world can view the content of what we're doing. So you're very aware of what not just what you're saying, but the pictures that you're sending out, and the confidentiality of your patient, is the most important thing.
Yeah, that would not doing a Mr. Hunt by having a little patient list on the background of your picture or anything like that.
No, so I had to be very, very aware of, like I say, the pictures we were sending out, the content, because we didn't want to offend anybody, we didn't want to upset upset or frighten anybody, you know, to come into the environment that they were coming in.
Yeah.
But the patients who were following through, the people who were following through, you know, were just absolutely outstanding and amazing. And they got to view all the content before it went out as well. So
that's really good. I mean, wow. So, of course, the project itself is no longer a 13-week pilot. It's now grown in its entirety, and all our listeners can go onto Twitter and go to @NHS and see many, many people now that are contributing, and it's always an insightful look. And I guess you look back and feel quite proud with what you've achieved and contributed towards that project. Now, what's kind of happened after that? So clearly you've turned into a bit of a celebrity, because clearly we've approached you and we want to talk to you. But what else has happened? I mean, you've made this video with the purpose of trying to promote the role of the ODP. I mean, give us some stories that have been quite successful since your work on @NHS and the video.
I mean, I've gone back into the university where I've trained, and I've been approached by other universities to just go and give some talks to not just the ODP students, but the, you know, multi-professional team students, just on days where they're sort of doing some collaborative working, just to discuss in more detail the role of the ODP and, you know, how we can support each other. So really, that's ultimately what I would love to do, because it's such a shame that, you know, people in our own profession and people in our own multidisciplinary team still don't know who we are and still don't know what we do. And I think we'll have to educate the people in our own surroundings before we educate sort of Joe public.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's partly why we started this and brought this on, was because kind of just doing, like you say, increase the conversation between the profession before we even decide to, you know, try and broach out to the public. Obviously, you've had the NHS, and the video, but what would you say is your best moment so far since becoming an ODP?
Well, I think my best moments actually happened quite recently. So I've been qualified ODP for 6 years, but I think the best moment personally was when I looked after the same patient for the third time. And I'd gone to collect her prior to her operation. And she actually said to me, because I'd looked after her twice before, she said, you know, I was hoping it was you that was going to look after me again.
Oh, wow. That's
and
amazing.
I just, honestly, I couldn't have been more thrilled, because there's no greater feeling, you know, than a patient's satisfaction. And they're saying, you know, I was hoping it was you that was going to look after me, and they'd remembered the care that you'd given them in the past.
Absolutely. It confirms to you that you're doing a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. That, you know, whether you hear it from your managers, whether you hear it from your colleagues, it's when you hear it from your patient and they've remembered you for it. And especially in the environment that we're in, where, you know, a lot of people don't remember that, you know, their anaesthetic or the surgery.
That's right. I mean, who are you?
It's mostly our fault with all the drugs they get.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So the fact that somebody hopes that you're looking after them again is just the best feeling in the world.
Here they are at the most vulnerable point in time, and of course we strip them bare of all their personality with a robe and put something on their wrist, and here's a bunch of notes that's you. And the one thing that was keeping that patient positive was the concept and the hope that they were going to meet you again, and that's really good.
I mean, it was yeah, absolutely amazing.
Well done, you.
And then, oh, thank you.
On the sort of flip side of that, what about funny moments? I mean, theatre is a very serious place, but we all know that sometimes things just happen that are bafflingly hilarious. What's been your funniest moment since becoming an ODP?
Well, there's been a couple. So when I was doing the NHS week, it was nice to put, because we're all actually quite known for our humour, you know, and like you say, in such a serious moment where people are so anxious and nervous, we're actually quite well known for our humour and breaking the ice and making people feel at ease. So when we done the NHS week, it was near Christmas, so it was nice. We had you can sort of have a look back. We'd done the sort of 12 days of the anaesthetic ODP, and it was based along the lines of On the First Day of Christmas song. So it was On the First Day of Christmas, My Unique Escape to Me, and extubated ETT. So it was it was a nice, fun way of you know, sort of getting people to learn about our profession.
Okay, that's good.
But then I think personally, there's a moment that sticks out in my head. So I gone to pick up a gentleman from the daycare area. Gone to meet him and do his checking in and all his sort of serious stuff before we brought him to theatre. And this guy was, already checked in, gowns on, bracelets on. But he actually had his paper underwear on his head. So I just sort of looked.
Okay.
You're trying to be professional. You're trying to, just not burst out and laugh. And I just had to say to him, I said, I'm sorry, but do you know that what you've got in your head's actually your paper underwear? And his explanation was, well, actually, I seen all you walking around with these paper hats on, so I thought it was a paper hat. But the funniest bit about it was he had his ears through the leg hole. And to him, it was just absolutely normal, It just shows how much we take for granted, what our patients say and what they expect.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and watch your face and how professional you have to keep at that
you
point.
try, but he did, at the end of the day, he did have a little laugh with us, and he said, I bet you're going to go and tell everybody now. And I was like, well, not everybody.
He's now
but maybe now
archived on
everybody.
PIPcast.
Did it look like a good hat, though?
Do you know what? It didn't look too bad.
See,
I can see where he was coming from, absolutely.
I bet he kept it.
If we ever run out of hats, I'm sure we could get away with some paper knickers.
So listeners, next time you're in theatres, wear your pants with pride on your head.
Wear your pants with pride on your head, absolutely.
Oh, Angela, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking to us. If the listeners at home wanted to get in touch with you, or obviously maybe even get in contact with your trust, because they obviously seem like a very supportive department, what's the best way of getting in contact?
So I'm on Twitter. I'm sure you'll pop the link on ODP McPhee. Yeah, I think just my Twitter page is probably the best place to get in touch. But
you're going to be inundated with fan mail, so but there we are. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, and
thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing because you're amazing.
Thanks very much,
I will do, and I'll be looking out for everything. Thank you for your help.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
So that was Angela, who has been a fantastic promoter of the profession and just demonstrated there why what you can do in order to promote our profession and take things forward.
It's amazing that someone was so empowered to take her role, the role of the ODP, and really be loud and proud about it, promote it as much as we can. And I think it's so important that we look at Angela's story and think, how can I take that story and make it work locally and join in this big national chorus of ODPs to really promote the role.
Absolutely. Great support from her team, and we look forward to hearing from her in the future. Next up, we've got an interview with Paul from Preoperative Logbook, so please enjoy.
This is PIPcast.
Hello and welcome to App Corner. Today we're looking at Preoperative Logbook and its creator, Paul. Paul, nice to meet you.
Good evening, hiya.
So Paul, you've created this app, a logbook app. Before we go into that, how long have you been an ODP? What's your origins?
So I came into being an ODP pretty much straight from school. Started my training in September 1994, which seems a very long time ago now, at Anglia Ruskin University in Chelmsford. Qualified in September 1996, and it was the days when ODPs were seconded from hospitals. So you were employed by a hospital, and then you were kind of sent away to the university to do the course.
Okay,
fantastic. So funding and bursaries wasn't an issue for you?
No, absolutely not. No. So qualified in '96 and stayed at Broomfield Hospital, and that's where I've stayed ever since. Really moved around a little bit, but became an ODP. Qualified September '96, became senior ODP in February 2000, and then in November 2016 I became one of the lead anaesthetic practitioners at Broomfield Hospital and at Braintree Community Hospital, which is our little kind of sister site. We've got 2 theatres there.
Fantastic.
In between, I've done some work at Anglia Ruskin University, working in the Sim Suite, where there were a group of 2 or 3 of us that were seconded down there to, I think it was about 30 days a year in total. So we did all sorts of high fidelity and medium fidelity things in simulation suite there, which was absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. I mean, that sounds like you've had quite a story career. And then to go on from that, how the hell in your busy schedule, obviously, but senior ODP and helping out in sim labs, how did you come across to doing an app like this?
Essentially back in, I think it was about 2009, 2010, I kind of started logging my own cases on little memory sticks, and I lost the memory stick, so I lost all of my data. There was no patient data on it. It was just kind of like age, what kind of airway stuff we were using and all that kind of stuff.
We've all been there when we've lost a paper logbook or something.
Absolutely. I think everybody's done it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I kind of realised that, hey, wouldn't it be better if it was maybe web-based? Because if it was web-based, it didn't, I couldn't lose it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I developed originally it was called the ODP logbook.
Okay.
Yep.
I developed that, and I started using it personally for me at work, and a couple of my colleagues saw me using it and were like, hey, that looks like it might be useful. So I essentially opened it up to to whoever wanted to play around with it in the department, because it was still quite in early stages.
So you've got a whole department of beta testers right there in front of you.
Yeah. No, I mean, there were a great bunch of beta testers, because a lot of them weren't particularly au fait at using computers. So it was a really, really good test of the system.
Okay, good. That sounds good.
And that went on for about a year, and then I bought the domain name ODP Logbook and put it up and started advertising it on Google, and that carried on for a year or so. And several updates later, I kind of realised that if I wanted it to be sustainable, I'd need people to essentially pay for the service.
Yeah.
And because I was finding that the hosting was going up significantly. And then at the same time, I realised that there were people within the operating department that weren't necessarily ODPs, but also wanted to use the software to not only log their anaesthetic cases, but also to log recovery cases, surgical cases. And it kind of dawned on me that I could adapt the anaesthetic one to pretty much any different type of speciality within the theatre.
So these are medics as well as nursing staff, kind of a mixture.
Yeah. I had an anaesthetist looking over my shoulder saying,
Wow.
"What are you doing?"
Because I mean, logging their work,
better than the one that I use.
Logging their work isn't new. I mean, we've seen many of our colleagues spend many of our time logging their work as part of their kind of development and proof of that they've actually been doing the work. So actually, you're going to tap into something that's already well established, and it's lovely to see that actually medics have looked at you and gone, "Wow, look at that! That's a great resource."
Yeah. I've had medics, I've had podiatrists look at it, I've had nurses who do pre-assessment looking at it, and that's the direction I think that the perioperative logbook will go. It will become hopefully an all-inclusive kind of logbook.
Okay.
Because it is very adaptable, and because I am the only person who is the administrator, developer, the fixer, sometimes the breaker. If you have a suggestion for it, it's very easy for me to implement, because I don't have to go through hundreds of different people to say yes or no. I can test it out and see if I can make something better because somebody suggested something, and it's quite easy and it's quite quick to work out whether what I've done makes things better or makes things worse.
So, talking about the app itself, so I was lucky enough that I think I saw you put an advert for the logbook on the CPD for ODP website. It would have been last year now, I think.
Yeah.
And I tested it and instantly loved it.
Good.
Very good logbook, very easy to, like I said, do separate cases, but also add any surgical procedures that perhaps your department does, or the names that you give your department gives it that other places don't have. Some people call it a Whipple, some people call it triple PD, some all these different names for different surgeries or procedures that different departments have. I think it trumps a lot, though. People who haven't actually seen the app, I would definitely suggest going to get it, even just for a trial, because for CPD, for your appraisals, it has got fantastic tools. For instance, not only will it log every single case you want to do surgically, anaesthetically, recovery wise, but you can also put on any courses that you've been on or any courses that you have taught at. You can put all of your journal reflections that you might have done. If you've read an article in a journal, you can pop it on there and you have an ongoing record. And the thing I really like, which I think was a relatively new addition when we were speaking, I say relatively new in the grand scheme of things, was this feedback that you can send. So we've all had anaesthetists and surgeons come up to us and ask for these multi-source feedbacks where they send off and it's you strongly agree or disagree that they are competent at their job, good at X, Y, Z, and you have incorporated this element into this logbook. I've used it several times, and I'm slowly building up a portfolio of reflections and feedback from my colleagues and peers, which is going to serve me quite well coming up to my appraisal. But I think is a feature that no other logbook has, and where yours really trumps it. How did you come about inputting all these different types of data sets into it?
At work, I receive multiple emails normally from anaesthetist colleagues who are requesting multi-score feedback or 360-degree feedback forms. And for me, it just seems like a natural progression, because we're under great pressure as a profession to be able to demonstrate all of our different courses that we do, all of the different procedures that we do. And although it's not at the moment, I can see that it's only a matter of time before professionally we are going to be required to do exactly what anaesthetists do, and that is to provide that peer feedback.
We've seen our nursing colleagues go through a process, haven't they, with their revalidation process, and I think they even, as a group, they agree that they've made some mistakes along the way about the process that they've gone through, and it's constantly evolving. And it won't be. I think you're right. It won't be long until HCPC grabs hold of all the specialities and practitioners that are within that remit to come in line with that process. And I can see how your app will feed into that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it just seems like a natural progression in terms of what the perioperative logbook can provide. I mean, its strength really is that it's a great big database where you can create forms and field entries and data sets in just about any kind of imaginable way. So for me, it just seemed like just a great way of incorporating something that isn't necessarily needed yet, but is very useful for appraisals and especially for newly qualified ODPs who haven't quite found their feet yet. It just seemed like a great inclusion into what I've already got in terms of a system. Yeah,
I totally agree. We were talking about this in kind of a pre-chat, and this has fantastic uses. And if I were a university lecturer or head of department right now, I'd be contacting you and asking, can you set me up one of these for my department for my students, so I can see the caseload they're doing, see the feedback they're getting from their peers and mentors, which will go back to not only kind of reinforcing what they're going to have to do in the future in terms of their appraisals and things like that, but it will enable them to put across maybe some modules in there that they might want to emphasise as part of their course. And if I could come to you with that, I think that would be a fantastic advantage to my course. So if I ever get that job, Paul, I'll be looking you up.
So Paul, it's a very clear cloud-based database that I can throw loads of information out, and I mean I've looked online and I've looked at Craig's World. He's spent a lot of time putting stuff in there. So with that information now, what can I do with it? How can I export it? How can I kind of show it off to my peers, to my interviewers? I mean, talk me through that process.
Essentially, the adding process is very simple. You go on to add cases, and you just decide what kind of case you're going to add, whether it's anaesthetic, surgical recovery, whether it's a journal or a course entry. And I've tried to design the forms so that they are as quick as possible. But if you want to spend time on them, there are sections on all of the forms where you can add a piece of reflective writing. So if it was a particularly interesting case, on anaesthetic cases, you can flag them as difficult intubations, you can do all sorts of things like that. But the real power comes from actually when you want to sort the data. So once you've got all of your data, you can view all of your cases, and you can view the cases by all of them collectively, one on top of each other, in a big kind of table, or you can just decide to view the anaesthetic cases, surgical cases. If you've added a course that has a little PDF, or if you've added the case, if you've added the course on your phone, it will ask you if you want to use the camera, and you can actually take a little shot of the actual certificate, and it will save that as a thumbnail, so that you've got that in like backup.
For when we all lose our certificates that we try and then desperately find.
Absolutely. We all do it. It's absolutely inevitable. When you go on to any of the viewing any of the data, if you're interested, or if you're running personal audits on how many cases have you done that are ASA3, who are difficult intubations, there's an advanced search feature on there, which you click, and it brings up a window, and you have you can have as many different queries in the advanced search as you really want.
That sounds incredibly powerful.
Limitless.
It's amazing. Here I am. I'm a listener listening to PIPcast right now. I'm sold. It sounds great. Where am I going to go to find this web-based project, this app?
Well, you just go to Google or any search engine, put in Preoperative Logbook or ODP Logbook, and it will take you. Should fingers crossed take you straight there. And one of the important things that I really want to stress is that if you do come along and you join up, and you get your month free, and you put in 300 cases or 50 cases, and then you decide that you don't want it anymore, we won't delete your data. We won't destroy your account.
Well, that's good.
You can simply just not renew it, but that data is still yours. You can still go in. You won't be able to add any cases, but you're still free to go in, view your cases, and all of your cases and all of your data you can download as CSV files, so that you can then put them into presentations, spreadsheets, do what absolutely ever you want to do with them.
That sounds great. That sounds good.
It's fantastic, and it's £20 for the year.
Yeah.
It's a yearly subscription service. £20. That's 4 or 5 Costa coffees. That's a week. That's a week's worth of my coffee bill.
We do like on PIPcast measuring things against Costa.
Absolutely, that is the economic measure by which all healthcare professionals should measure their decisions.
On coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. But Paul, you've been very kind, and for our PIPcast listeners, there is now a coupon, which if you type in when you go to subscribe. If you type in the words PIPcast, all uppercase, you will get 20% off your first subscription.
That's 20%.
That's 20%.
That's amazing.
That's a couple of Costa coffees,
That's
in fact. So, Paul, we have to say thank you very much, and on behalf of our listeners, thank you very much for telling us about the app, but also for the discount. I know that as much as we would all like these things to be free, there is someone at the other end. In this case, we've had Liam and Victoria from before, who do put a lot of work in, and for whom it isn't free to run these programs and these apps. So thank you very much for that. And you'll probably be hearing more from us about this app, and more from Paul as things get updated. We'll have him have you back on the show, Paul, to kind of talk about what's new. But thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Thank you.
You take care. We'll be in touch.
This is PIPcast.
So that was Paul, and another fantastic story and another fantastic ODP story creating apps. Very glad to have spoken to him.
I mean, what a great idea. Something that kind of grew with his own, trying to improve his own practice, trying to record stuff. I think we've all been in a situation where we want to log what we do, and eventually it fizzled out because it just doesn't really work. It's a piece of paper, or like he mentioned, you lose your USB sticks, and there's nothing quite disheartening of losing that information. But he's kind of taken it a step forward and grown something that even now, outside of the world of ODPs, they're engaging with it.
Yeah, we'll put a link to the website, his website, again in the description of this podcast. And once again, that coupon for all our PIPcast listeners is PIPcast, all capital letters, and you will get 20% off your subscription. But please do it before our next episode, because the promotion will only last for this month while this episode's airing.
This is PIPcast.
So Justin, I'm very aware this is the part of the show where we might like to go through the Journal of Preoperative Practice. Please subscribe if you're an AFPP member. It's very useful.
Yeah.
It's got lots of articles. Unfortunately, we've got slightly, I say bigger fish, different fish to fry, in that something fantastic is about to happen in a couple of weeks for our profession.
Yeah, so for the first time in a very long time, because I think most of you guys could probably reach out and think of times that they have come together, but in this kind of new world of operating department practice, the Sheffield Hallam University have decided to put together an inaugural ODP conference.
So I was alerted to this conference on Twitter and managed to get in contact with Helen Lowes, one of the senior lecturers at SHU, who's been organising the event.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to say that PIPcast will be in attendance. We'll be there, mic'd up, hopefully with a T-shirt identifying us with the appropriate logo and signage. But we'll be there, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I think it's only appropriate that we give a little pre-review of what the programme's going to be.
It's a great pleasure that as a group of people they see there is some merit in our PIPcast, so that's lovely. That's I think one of those marks of success that the university feel that this is a good thing, and to invite us along, and the idea is that Craig will be a roving reporter throughout the day, looking at and taking part in the whole process.
Yeah.
We'll be talking to you guys, the guys that are candidates that are going to come along, take part in it, from the student ODPs to whoever else who comes along, and get your versions, your thoughts, your stories, and then we'll be able to review it to kind of support them as they grow and do more conferences.
Absolutely. It's on the 5th of July. And what's on it? What is it worth your time? Well, I can tell you, it absolutely is. First of all, we've got Hannah Abbott, who is the new president of the College of Operating Department Practitioners.
There's lots of excitement going on there, isn't there?
Absolutely.
With the new president.
Changing of the guard.
Change of the guard. I think on the national world there's been some great stuff that I know CODPD have been working hard at achieving. So Hannah will be there, and I think you're going to spend some time talking to her.
Well, hopefully we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what she says, and if I can get away with her, that would be fantastic. We've also got there's also loads of skills workshops you can attend, of various different varieties. We've got anything from human factors, sharp safety. There's a mentor update throughout the day as well. Helen herself is doing a very interesting take on a career development framework for ODPs and other perioperative practitioners, which for me sounds very interesting in terms of our developing our profession, moving us forward into advanced clinical practice or just advanced practice in general. I'm very much looking forward to that talk, and I'll be in attendance for that one.
That'll be good, and I think Tracy Williams from AFPP are coming along to talk about setting the standards. We know they produce a very large document, I have to say, that goes through all the different standards, and very appropriate because we've currently got a Twitter poll currently out that talks about what you want us to talk about, and setting standards and best practice is one of those things. So I think we'll get some information from there.
Absolutely. The headliner, if we can call that, the Aretha Franklin of the day, is Sheila Morris. Who is Sheila Morris, if you haven't heard of her? Well, I don't know if you know this, but we're allied health professionals now.
No way!
We are.
Wow.
We are. And hopefully she's going to tell us what that means.
Yeah, I think that's really crucially important. And I know in episode 1 we said that we were going to reach out to the allied healthcare professional world and of course the NHS England part of that. And this will be a great opportunity because hopefully Craig will be able to talk to this young lady to talk about how that impacts on our world, and clearly she's got a real good keynote speech that will talk about our impact on the world now as allied healthcare professionals.
Absolutely. So Sheila's the Deputy Chief Allied Health Professional in England, in NHS England. So I'll be attending her talk, and if I can speak to her, fantastic. If not, I'll give a little review of what she said and everything like that, and hopefully be live tweeting on the day as well.
Yeah, really good. And there's going to be a huge panel discussion about what we feel quite passionate about PIPcast, because ultimately that's the kind of the seed of this podcast is how we develop us.
Yeah.
How do we move ODPs forward, and what is the future for us with the concerning numbers with regard to university access, and of course us as well-established ODPs, what is the future for us? And so there's a really good panel discussion booked that, again, hopefully Craig from PIPcast will contribute to.
I'm under pressure now.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, there's some more workshops, and this is, again, all about that developing us as advanced practitioners in various fields. So we've got a talk by Liam Wilson about leading simulation. Brian Corrin, who I believe is one of the physician's assistants in anaesthetics, is talking about extending anaesthetic roles and what a PAA does. I was going to say a PA, but that's a completely different job.
We need one of those.
They still involve coffee, though.
That's
both roles
fundamental
involve
to
coffee.
anaesthesia recovery and scrub practice.
Absolutely. What to do to get there? So for ODPs who are maybe looking to go in that career, what you need to do in order to get that career.
And a nice little piece on research and writing publications for ODPs. I mean, we live in a world where we're constantly evolving practice, but actually, what does it involve in writing a piece, a publication that could influence the way that the practice evolves? And so there's going to be a nice little piece there from Victoria Cadman, who's a lecturer at SHU.
Absolutely. The role of first surgical assistant. I know some people like to do their advanced scrub practice, so being a surgical assistant is key to that, especially going forward. Iona Pegg from Derby is going to be talking about that, about what it's like to be a surgical first assistant, and how can trusts develop their own practitioners to be first assistants.
Well, what a bumper day.
Yeah.
That's so much going on there, isn't it?
It's incredible. I can't believe, number one, it's the first.
Yeah.
What a program to have as a first one. They've really, really done well here, and I hope this is the first of many. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope to see many of you there. Please come and find me. Please come and tap me on the shoulder. Please don't hit me.
Yeah, I kind of need him back to carry on with the rest of the PIPcast, really.
Any other, but tap me on the shoulder if you want to have a chat, if you want to talk about any of the subjects we've mentioned in previous PIPcasts, or something you'd like to be brought up in a future one. We'd be great to have you on the show. We might have a little bit of goodies to give away, some kind of PIPcast merch.
Yes, absolutely, to promote the amazing logo. That's been tweaked slightly, but it's all great. I mean, you're going to be fantastic, so please go and find Craig, because he will certainly be there, champion PIPcast, and giving a real good feedback and review of this conference.
Fantastic. That logo, that has been tweaked by a friend of mine, Andrew Gerard. If you would like to have any graphic design done, he is absolutely fantastic. He tells me he didn't need to do much to the logo to tweak it to make it a little bit better, but I think he was possibly being
you guys, if you've not really seen the logo recently, it has slightly taken a change by the very fact it's crystal clear now, rather than edgy and pixelated. So we are constantly evolving, which you will see beautifully on a t-shirt that Craig will be likely to be wearing.
So that's it for this blistering episode of PIPcast.
Ooh, it's warm.
It is so warm.
It's warm.
We're going to go hose down, essentially. But we should have, hopefully, if all goes well and we get enough content, there will be a special conference edition of PIPcast coming 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm hoping if we get enough content, we'll have it 2 weeks after that, which means that PIPcast should now be, fingers crossed, a fortnightly show. So every 2 weeks the shows will be a little bit shorter, a bit more succinct, but they will be a bit more frequent for you to get through all the content that we've got basically backed up in the locker.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much planned, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, we've got so much content that we look forward to presenting to you. It's going to be great.
We've got a Twitter poll up on we want to introduce some educational elements for our student ODPs or just people developing in general. We'd like to get speakers on to talk about and do kind of a teaching session. if we can. So we'd love to get your input. So we've kind of got a range of options. They are a limited range. We know that there's such a variety of options we could have in terms of education. Please feel free to tweet us if we haven't mentioned your favourite. But on there we've got anatomy and physiology, current best practice, specialty specific tips, and of course legislation.
Oh my goodness.
Who doesn't love a bit of legislation? I think we could do at least 3 hours on legislation if you wanted a special PIPcast legislation episode.
I don't think we could do that to our listeners. Greg.
No, I don't think we could.
So guys, thank you for listening. It's really important that we know from a temperature gauge, quite apt there, how well we are doing. So please do like and share and comment. Go into iTunes, leave us a review. Go on the SoundCloud, leave us a review. We are very aware that this is a podcast is now actually across lots of platforms. It isn't just the bits that we mentioned. We know people that go through podcasts through different ways that we now feature, so we are available in most places now, which is good. But we want to hear from you, and thank you so much before, and the stuff that you've given us is great. But how was this podcast for you? Was it great? Could it have been better? What would you like to feature? That interactivity is really good for us to develop the podcast ethos.
Yeah, so once again you can get in contact with us on Twitter at ODPPipcast. You can either give us a call on Skype and leave a message, or you can email us using the same address, which is odppipcast@gmail.com, or go on Facebook, search for Pipcast or ODP Pipcast, and we should come up, or Google us. Just Google us, because apparently we have taken over the ODP Pipcast search on Google, which I'm sure any of the other ODP Pipcasts that might have been out there are devastated by.
But there you are, guys. So thank you very much once again. That is episode 3 in the bag, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Toodles.
This is PIPcast.